Alright, everybody. So, welcome to an episode of Would I Buy? Show where I try out a few demos, basically decide from that, give out my thoughts and first impressions on it, and basically make the decision of whether I would buy it, wait for a sale, or whether I'd just leave it completely alone. I will then ask you guys about your thoughts on whether you've played it, and essentially just try and find out what you think of the game as well. So when it came to Raving Rabbids, and I don't know, it takes a bit for me to get used to calling it Raving Rabbids, and it has done for a time. I've been there since the beginning, since the Rabbids first started. You know, when they first had to have Rayman, because it were Rayman Raving Rabbids, weren't it? And they had to use Rayman in order to get them well known. They seem to have strayed well away from Rayman now. It's a shame. It's kind of a bit like when Spyro had Skylanders. They had to use Spyro name to get Skylanders going, and Skylanders, well, you don't really hear much of Skylanders these days. But yeah, anyway. So Raving Rabbids, I do like them. They're kind of like the minions of the game world, aren't they? Pretty much, they're crazy, and they're just crazy. Now, I'll be absolutely honest. I prefer Raving Rabbids over Minions. I think Minions kind of frustrate me. I don't know. Maybe it's because they're just so much more well known, and they just really, really pushed it. I mean, not that they're not pushing Raving Rabbids, but yeah, they're essentially the gaming equivalent to Minions. But I always found that Raving Rabbids had a lot more to them. They had a lot more variety. Like, they had all different kind of costumes, and they all did just completely different things. Even though they all virtually did the same thing, but I don't know. I kind of, even though they all just did the same thing, shouting "blah" every time, but I actually find them more entertaining to watch than Minions. I don't get Minions. Meh. Anyway, that digress. I've spent all this time talking about Minions. I'm not the game itself. Point is, I do like the Raving Rabbids. However, they seem to be very hit and miss with the games. I loved the old school minigames when they first came out. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they've made attempts they have made an attempt at a party game before, because I had, was it Rabbids Land on the Wii U? And I did play that, and it did try to incorporate some of the controls from that gamepad, and I didn't mind that. I didn't mind the games using the gamepad, but the problem that I had with Rabbids Land is that I wanted to be watching it on TV. And that was a problem, because most of the gamepad games, you had to use the gamepad for it. Now, obviously, this seems to be another attempt at doing mini games, and it's going to be very hard to really judge this on its own, where you just think there are so many other mini game type collections out there, and I think it's hard to go into it where you're not going to compare it to Mario Party and things like that. And so obviously, let's just go into it with the demo itself. So when I went into it, there were four mini games. Now, obviously, the first mini game itself was the dancing one, and I'll be absolutely honest, I played it. I liked the choice of characters when I went into it all, so it looked like you had a big choice of stuff, and that's great, that's fine when you got a great big choice. I'm not too fussed for huge, great amounts of choices of characters. I usually just pick the same way. It's like in, I don't know, you probably will just pick your favourite, but if it was like Mario Party, I don't know, I always tend to just stick with Mario. Except from Super Mario Party, because they had different dices. I thought that gave you an incentive. And obviously in this one, it doesn't seem to be an incentive. It's just purely down to cosmetic. It's down to cosmetics. So yeah, so when it went into the minigame itself, it was a dancing type game. And you had to move your controller in the direction of the arrows pointing in time with the music. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get into it. And it was purely just down to the fact that I hate games where it invokes you making you use the gyro controls and stuff like that. And it's just, I don't know, it was like sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. This is the problem I have with gyro, and then it just, I seem to have got into a routine where it was like if there was a huge barrage of arrows coming at the same time, it's like if you missed your first one and you were out of sync with your first one, it started registering your other, you were trying to move it and it started registering it as another one, so you ended up like missing quite a few or not getting perfect scores. And this is the problem I had with it. I just couldn't. I tell you, you had to really, really well and truly practice on that to get perfect all the way through. But I don't know, I just found it might have just been me. I always say that. I just think it could have just been me being rubbish, but my thoughts, my impression is that it just wasn't well responsive and stuff, and it was fine that whenever you missed one, you would end up missing another because you were then out of sync and it started registering your movement on gyro as another option. So I'm going to just show it like, see, you see how it goes on occasion out of sync and then it messes up your other ones. Could just be me, it's rubbish, but don't like these ones. Could just be me, but yeah, not the best experience with that. And there was another one with a paddling thing, and I didn't get that either. It was like you had to move it. It was sort of similar. I remember there was a bicycle level on Mario Party where you had to ride your bicycle. You had to move the gyro in a weird way. But it also kind of looked as if it wanted you to steer it. But I didn't know if you had to steer it. I don't know if it was down to timing. I'm sorry, I just still didn't get it. And then you were bouncing into your other character and everything like that. I didn't get it. So that's obviously 2 games in a demo with 4 games that I wasn't a big fan of. There was another one with where you had to move your character and you had to stay on the platform as it slowly got smaller. That one was fine. I didn't mind that one. That was quite fun. I kind of liked that. And then a 4th one as well. You'll probably see in the footage, but if I were to say right now on the top of my head what it were, I can't remember. I genuinely can't remember. I'm sorry, but I can't. So yeah, I'll be honest, for a demo that only displayed 4 games out of 50, and that's 4 games out of 50, so yeah, 50 mini games, and 2 of them that they showed to me I wasn't a big fan of, and it kind of just made me think how many more gyro games or dance games, because usually they can't help themselves, where there'll be like at least 3 or 4 games that'll involve dancing or something like that, and that's, yeah, the whole game just seems to be like relying on 50 mini games, and there don't seem to be any form of board game like that you'd get in Mario Party. And in Mario Party, I think there's a lot more than 50 mini games. There were about 30, 40 odd in that Rabbids Land, and that had a board game, incorporated into it. So I kind of get the feeling from this game is that it's relying heavily on you having kids and actually having people that would really want to get into it. And you know what? Once upon a time, that would be good. That'd be absolutely fine. You'd get into it with your friends. You'd get into it with your kids. I suppose you could say it's relying a lot on the kids loving rabbits and stuff like that. Probably like loving them as much as Minions. And I like stuff like the Rabbids when it came to, because there's that Mario and Rabbids, and that was good. I'm having a big stretch. It's spawning now. But yeah, it tends to rely a lot on you liking the Rabbids. But as a game itself, I looked at the price and they're asking for £35 for this. You're asking for £35 for a collection of mini games. That's just under nearly £1 for each one, and I would not play. Now, obviously, one thing I need to mention, I mean, obviously, like I said, even though there is a lack of a even though there is a lack of a board game mode, there is a form of story mode here, and it looks like you will go through different points in time and stuff like that, and it says just go on a crazy wild adventure. And I just obviously sense from that will be nothing but a few random mediocre cutscenes as a means of sort of separating the types of mini games. So obviously you'll probably have some mini games set in like maybe China, and then other ones set in somewhere not China. Yeah. And I just kind of get the feeling that that's what that story mode's going to be. It's just going to be a different type of window dressing for playing the mini games, which is fine. I have no problem with that. At least they've tried with that respect. They could have just literally thrown in, here you go, here's a bunch of mini games, and there you go. So I'm glad that they've put that in. But that, I suppose you could say window dressing is still window dressing in that situation. It's nice that they've tried, but yeah, it's nothing more than another way of playing the mini games, but in a specific order with some kind of bit of a story, which is better than, I don't know. You know what I'm saying. It's nice that they've put it in. I suppose it gives you a bit of motivation to play it if you were playing by yourself. But yeah, it's not enough probably to warrant. So I could take a wild guess that it's not something that you're going to play again and again and again. It's the best story ever. But I digress. A lot of these minigames I can take a wild guess that I probably would not enjoy, which is probably not good. Now I know that in this situation, maybe I'm not the target audience, and I'll accept that. But even then, even if I'm not the target audience, I would have thought for a lot of people it's a big ask, £35 for people to buy that game. So for me, if I were to buy it, obviously you could probably tell I wouldn't buy it. I would say I don't mind party games, and I'm probably sure that there probably would be stuff in there that's quite fun. I do like that ball game, for example. So maybe at some point in time, I would get it maybe on a sale. I wouldn't like to say that I'd just write it off, because I do like the Rabbids and I do like these party type games. But because you've got so much competition now with like Mario Party and everything like that, I would probably just wait for a sale on this one personally. So yeah, but as I say, that's just me. That's just my opinion. I mean, what about you guys? Have you tried the demo? What do you think? Is it something that you were really on board with? Do you love this kind of party game? Did you have a lot more positive experience with the music game? Would you wait for a sale? Is it something you can hold off? Have you got stuff like Mario Party already? You just think you can get by with that one? You're enjoying that? Did you ever play Rabbids Land on the Wii U? Or is it something that didn't interest you? Let me know in the comments. And as always, I will see you guys on the next one. Laters.